what's your thought, honestly, just on going internal? Do you think that's the right decision? I think you can make a lot of arguments for why that, it would make sense because the coaches on the staff already know the system. And last year you had Steve Wilkes, who was an outsider, who had outsider, you know, he had those outsider tendencies that Kyle Shanahan didn't like. And, that kind of caused a riff. And XYZ, next thing you know, he's fired. So is going internal the right move for the 49ers?
No, it's not. It's not the right move, not because those guys aren't good coaches. Let's try to clear that up. But Daniel Bullocks has been with the Niners since 2017. He's a 40-year-old defensive backfield coach. He has no play calling or defensive coordinator experience to speak of. Okay? So that's one. Then you've got Chris Kacherik, the D-line coach, and I kind of get the feeling that he'd rather be the D-line coach. Then you've got Johnny Holland, who I loved. Heck, I was a Johnny Holland fan when he played in college at Texas A&M. But Johnny's an older guy. I think he's beaten some serious health conditions in the past, and I just don't think of him as a coordinator. Then there's Nick Sorensen, who was the defensive passing game coordinator. He's never been a DC. He's at least been a coordinator. He was Jacksonville's special teams coordinator, but he's got no DC experience. He's only been on the Niners staff as an assistant for 2 years. So, you're telling me you're going to run out Steve Wilkes, who's got head coaching experience, who's been a defensive coordinator in a number of spots, after a year where his defense finished top 10 in total defense, 8th overall in yards per game allowed, 3rd in points per game allowed. So he's got a top 5 defense as far as points. He's got a top 10 defense as far as yards. He just had a nice performance in the Super Bowl where they kind of held Patrick Mahomes in check. And you're going to run him out, and you're just going to say, hey, guys, we're going to promote somebody from within who has no prior defensive coordinator experience. And now I know D'Amico didn't either, but D'Amico played in the NFL at middle backer and wore the green dot. I think he's kind of a unique situation. I think that the person that gets named as the replacement, I mean, what's more important, that the fans like it or that the players like it? I would say it's more important that the players like it. So are the players, you're telling me that Steve Wilkes, after leading a top 5 defense in points per game, didn't have an ally or two in the room? And you're just going to be able to name anybody on your defensive staff who's getting a first try at it, and everybody's immediately, you're going to get 100% buy-in? I don't agree with that. I think there'll be some people that, and if you pick a proven name that's done it, you get immediate buy-in from fans, from players. If you pick somebody who's just talented, you're not going to get an immediate buy-in from anybody. So to me, it just seems very risky to just say, oh, yeah, here you go, non-defensive coordinator experience assistant. You're now the guy. Where if you get a big name guy like a Pete Carroll or Vrabel or the top of the heap in Belichick, you get immediate buy-in from the fans, immediate buy-in from the players. And think about it this way, too. If you're going to even consider any of those top 3 guys, maybe 4 even, Staley, Vrabel, Belichick, or Pete Carroll, you probably have to offer them the position and then give them some time to decide if they want it. And then in this particular situation, some of those guys have made a grip of cash. So, and there is no cap on what you're paying these coordinators. So if you're really going to excite Pete Carroll or Belichick or Vrabel or one of these guys that's gotten paid as a head coach, they know the deal. They know that you can pay them whatever you want. So it's like not only do you offer them something, then you've got to negotiate out a contract. And then you got to give them a few days to think about it. And are you really going to interview anybody but internal candidates? If you've offered Bill Belichick, like Peter King went on 95.7 yesterday, or maybe it was 2 days ago, and he said, I would not be shocked at all if Kyle picked up the phone and offered the gig to Belichick or Carroll. Okay. So if you're going to pick up the phone and offer the gig to Belichick or Carroll, and here's a guy in Peter King who actually spent time with Kyle Shanahan on more. He was embedded in their war room. He rode to practice with him. He has a relationship with him. If he would go on the radio and said he wouldn't be shocked at all if Kyle picked up the phone and offered the gig to Belichick or Carroll, well, you can't get guys to come in you can't start interviewing guys from around the league. You might be able to interview your in-house guys, but but you're not going to be able to attract guys to get on a bird and fly out. Why would I go fly on an airplane to the West Coast to interview for a job when you told me you offered it to Pete Carroll, or you told me you offered it to Bill Belichick, or I know that you're offering it to those guys? So I just think that the plan is go for the big. I think the plan A, now this is my own theory. Plan A is the big name external candidate. And then you have to negotiate a big contract, maybe a precedent setting contract, to be honest. If you're going to get Bill Belichick, you might have to offer a ton. So who else there's been no leaks, no talk of anybody. Well, why is that? Because they're probably just offered it to one big name guy or two big name guys, probably just one, and now they're going to spend their week interviewing internal candidates. So then you look around and you say, well, first of all, does Belichick seem like the kind of guy that would want that out there? No. Carroll doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would want that out there. So there's, and the Niners, the last thing they want is, they pursued these guys, they struck out, so they're going internal. So I think they're only guys that anybody's willing to acknowledge in the inner dialogue that happens between coaches, scouts, personnel people around the NFL are Niner assistants who may have whispered, yeah, I interviewed for it. Yeah, I'm interviewing for it. And so a guy like Silver says, yeah, my moles around the league say that they're just interviewing in-house candidates. Okay, I agree with that, because you're not going to go interview, external candidates.
Let me ask you this.
If you've made a big play for, somebody of the ilk of Pete Carroll or somebody of the ilk of Bill Belichick.
I can't remember last season, and we were covering this semi-closely. It was kind of right when I joined in on the Krug show in terms of being an editor. But the Steve Wilks hiring, was there rumors before that? I don't remember there being a ton of rumors or leaks about who they were talking to. I know that they gave interviews to their internal candidates last year, and then it ended up giving it to Steve Wilks. But I don't remember anyone speculating, Steve Wilks is being interviewed by the 49ers. Do you remember that?
No talk at all.
So,
Niners Nation has suggested Jeff Ulbrich.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. But first I was just going to say,
yeah,
the Peter King thing, he said before he even said all of that he knew someone that knows Bill Belichick and he doesn't want to be a defensive coordinator. But that was a few weeks ago.
That was a few weeks back.
A few weeks ago, things could have changed. I think there's no doubt that you leave no stones unturned with this defensive coordinator position. I think some people have been making the argument that it's like Kyle just wants to control, like he's a psychopath, that Kyle just wants to control the team like he's like some dictator or something. I don't think this is a crazy take, and some people have been mentioning it today like it's a crazy take. I think it's pretty obvious Kyle just wants to run the offense. He's an offensive coordinator who's a head coach. He wants nothing to do he wants the scheme to be the scheme that he wants, but he doesn't want to be the guy that's like calling the plays. He wants to be able to forget about that. I'm almost 100% positive that at this point, maybe he did at one point, but I'm sure at this point he's like, this is a fucking headache. I just want to find a guy that can, get it done for me. And I think
I
that's
think
why
he wants the defensive coordinator to be somebody that he believes so strongly in
right.
that he never would question them. Here's the other thing. Shanahan told me and others, I think it was a couple years ago, he's like, well, if I had a good defensive coordinator, but Bill Belichick was available, I'd be stupid not to hire Bill Belichick and fire my defensive coordinator. So he's already stated that. So now we're supposed to believe that Kyle, who knows that Bill Belichick was out there and did not get one of the 7 or 8 head coaching openings, that he fired Steve Wilkes, who's top 10 in yards and top 5 in points allowed and has been an NFL head coach, and he knew that Belichick was out there, but he has no interest in Belichick? See, I don't buy that at all. I think for sure Belichick has been offered the job. I think for sure he's been offered the job.
At least considered.
He may not take it, but I think for sure he's been offered the job.